What's going on, everybody? It's Nima here, and I just want to say that I'm messing around with my audio, so if I sound weird in the next couple videos, I'm just trying to really hone it in, and I know some of that is my garbage voice, and there's just nothing I can do about that, but in some ways, I think I can, really fine-tune some points and make it a little bit better. So, yeah, I just wanted to explain that. Also, if you're not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. Help us get to 1,000. This community, we've been here for a while. We have been doing some amazing things here, and you should join this awesome community with a bunch of really cool people. Anyway, let's talk about a kemco game. I'm always kind of hesitant when it comes to kemco games because, let's be honest, kemco games are great. If I was in high school or college, I would be on them all the time because they're $13 to $15 and they're decent RPGs. I'm not gonna lie, they have really good writing most of the time. They have all the characteristics of an RPG that I love, which typically tends to be kind of more retro style, which I can't believe I'm saying that, but turn-based, equipment, upgrading your characters, things of that nature, as well as having a well-thought-out story, or somewhat well-thought-out story. For the most part, I have to say, a lot of these games tend to kind of be carbon copies of themselves. And not all of them, but there are some, and it is kind of a crapshoot with kemco. Now, you always know you're going to get at least a decent performing game, and for the most part, an enjoyable game, but it could play like a lot of the other games you've gotten from them. So when I saw Raging Byte, I knew I had to pick this game up. It looked different, it seemed different. A combination of horror meets RPG is not that common, and I really like that combination. It's been some of my favorite games, at least to have some form of horror or suspense in it, as well as all the characteristics of an RPG. And that's exactly what Raging Byte brings to the table. Now, the game starts off at an interesting little scene where there's a child and a mother, and they're looking at the moon. At the same time, the TV is on, and you can hear them talking about a moon landing, as well as we get the information that the kid's dad and the husband is actually on that spaceship. So, there's an interesting little aspect of the game. Then we start to hear things about cosmic rays and how they're causing issues. That's not the full story, and before we know it, the game starts you off as a character named Barbara, who's one of the main characters, as she wakes up from just an exhausting week of work. She's a doctor, so she has been pulling 24-hour shifts and is exhausted. Doesn't even want to wake up, really, but she is alerted by a phone call from a friend of hers who says, "Hey, have you looked at the news? Are you turning anything on, TV, radio, anything on?" But before she has a chance to, her best friend comes barging into her house, and he grabs her by the wrist and says, "Get whatever you need, we have to go." The game sort of takes off from that aspect until then we get yet another opening scene as we wake up as a police officer who's been injured in a car accident. He wakes up in a hospital with no one around. Some of his stuff is around, none of his weapons, of course. There's no power in the hospital, and no one's around. He can also see some blood on the ground and knows that something is up. So he decides to investigate on his own. After a quick change into his police officer uniform, he decides to head out, where we are then welcomed to the actual game. And in here is just kind of a quick tutorial until you're able to find an axe on the wall. Then comes the combat. Now, as time goes on and you navigate yourself through this, you actually meet up with Barbara, and this duo becomes your core team for quite a while. You, of course, find different members of your team, just like in an RPG or anything else, but the main goal that you have is to not only find documents and find out what was going on and how this whole zombie thing started. And I know what you're thinking. Nima, you just told me that this has to do with cosmic rays or some sort of space madness. Well, maybe. We don't know, because there's also some sort of information that hints at a serum that was maybe produced before the actual zombie thing started, and this could have something to do with a larger scale event. We don't know. And that really makes part of this game fun, is searching for documents. But not only that, you are searching, of course, for ammo, for health, and for weapons. But the one thing that is kind of important about this game, and the gameplay itself, as it is a turn-based RPG, you don't want to waste ammo. Ammo is incredibly hard to come by. And to be honest, a lot of this game plays out as you just conserving your ammo for bigger and badder zombies. Now, luckily with Ben, he has a move where he can throw rocks. And that doesn't sound that powerful, but it actually is. And you can also eventually start to find other weapons like throwing knives, darts, even crossbows. And you do have melee weapons as well, but there is a penalty for using melee weapons if you don't kill the zombie. There is a knockback kind of penalty where essentially if you're close enough to the zombie was able to get you too. So anytime you have to use a melee weapon, it really does hurt you. unless you timed it out where your melee attack will kill the zombie. You see, the way most battles start off is the zombies have about 3 to maybe 4 moves before they're right up in your face. So that gives you time to be able to come up with just different strategies. One of them that really starts off is basically just throwing a rock at them over and over. And that does get a bit repetitive. And if I'm being honest, a lot of the battles towards the end of the game do get repetitive because it starts to become easier and you kind of understand how to do some stuff, as well as you get another character about midway through the game who actually helps boost up attacks. And I didn't talk about the fact that Barbara also has a special move where she is basically first aid. So as you are able to find a ton of healing items, you can also just use her to heal you as well. So the game isn't incredibly difficult, but it is interesting and different, and that's what I really enjoy about it, as well as having a really good story. Like, the dialogue in this game is done really, really well. You really get to understand how the characters feel, and I think that writing really brings the characters to life, as there are quite a few NPCs that you run into, and that can really shape the entire game. Now, not that you have much of a decision in how things go, but it is really interesting to see how different characters handle different situations. Not to mention the fact that graphically, I really like the game. Yes, it's pixel art. It's not 2D HD or any of the fancy stuff from Square, but it does look really good. And more importantly, it performs really well. I never had a crash or an issue with this game, and that really helped with the pacing of the game as well. Because there would be instances where, like, a zombie would break through a wall, or a downed zombie might kind of grab you as you're inspecting them. These kind of things really helped move the game along at a fast enough pace where you didn't really get bored. At the same time, you did have that opportunity to kind of assess a situation. I really did enjoy this game quite a bit, and I'm glad I picked it up. And it being $13.49, I believe it's 10% off right now, it's definitely well worth it. Like, this is one of the funnest games I've played in quite a while. And what I mean by that is it's just good, clean fun. Well, maybe not clean, but it's good fun where there's not a lot going on. There's not anything to really stress over about, which is kind of weird. If you can put yourself into that mindset of just playing like a good old-fashioned zombie game, this is that. It's just maybe a little bit slower paced with it being an RPG, but that is also in some ways what I like about it. Especially for it being a budget title on the Nintendo Switch, I think this was the best way to present this game. If they had done more of an action RPG, I don't know if it would hold up. I don't know if they have the budget for that. And I'm just glad they were able to make this project a reality. Because honestly, the adventure you go on is well worth it. It's well worth your time and well worth your money. Now, there are a few things that I did have a complaint about. Number one, so as you're playing as Ben, the former cop, one of your main motivations is to get to your child, which is actually the child that was watching the moon landing. Now, I know that's confusing. The stepdad was actually the astronaut, and the real dad is you, the former police officer. And I don't know, really quickly and early on in the game, he sort of forgets about his kid. Like, he doesn't really talk about him for like a majority of the game. He doesn't really talk about that being a motivator to keep going to try to find his kid and his ex-wife. Just like, that's kind of messed up. And as well as I said before, kind of touched on, the combat does get a bit repetitive. And there are definitely times when I felt like the leveling up didn't really do anything. And I really felt that throughout the entire game. You would gain a little, like, health, but as far as your attacks, that was more based on what type of weapon you were using and how powerful that was, far more than anything else that, like, leveling up, like your strength or dexterity. And honestly, there is no use of, like, agility because nobody misses in this game. Every attack is going to hit, whether it be from enemies or from you. So that doesn't come into play. And I really did feel like, well, why did you even add in leveling up if it's not gonna do anything? Or it's gonna do very little. And those were the, my main complaints about the game, but just taking a step back and enjoying it for what it was, I really, really enjoyed it, and I would recommend it to just about anybody. Anyway, that's my thoughts on Raging Byte. Let me know what your thoughts are down below. Did you think about this game? Have you seen this game? Are you surprised it was a Kemco game like I am? Anything and everything, guys. I'd love to hear from you in the comment section. Take care, everyone. Love y'all. Bye-bye.